Hello, welcome back to Recap Time. Today we're going to talk about a 2007 movie titled Knocked Up. The movie talks about a shabby boy in his early 20s who accidentally gets a lady pregnant. It becomes his biggest surprise in his life and is forced to make a lot of sacrifices that impacts his personal life. Stay glued to the screen and don't forget to subscribe. Watch out, spoilers ahead. The movie begins with the band of friends, Ben, Ray, Jason, Martin and Joma living in the moment. In Pete and Debbie's house, Debbie's younger sister, Allison, wakes up and the kids wakes their dad up. Pete and Debbie have an argument about Pete canceling their plans to go for a practice and Allison volunteers to take the kids to school. Back at Ben's apartment, they are all cracked up while discussing the approach to launching their website where people gets to see adult clips of their favorite celebrities. At Allison's workplace at E! They are waiting for a celebrity to arrive for an interview when someone tells Allison the boss, Jack, wishes to see her. Jack tells her she's been promoted, which means she's going to be put on camera. She tells her sister at home, and Debbie suggests they celebrate it by partying. Ben and his band are gisting while Debbie and Allison dances. Then Ben moves to the counter to get a beer, but the barman seems to be more attentive to others than them. Allison comes to and Ben grabs 2 drinks after a brief chat with Allison. He offers his beers to her and she leaves. Later, Ben stares at Allison and Debbie from a distance and Jason walks up to him. Ben explains Allison gave him an opening and Jason encourages him to meet them. They meet them, and as Jason flirts with Debbie, she gets a call and leaves, but Allison chooses to stay back and hang out. They get drunk and Allison tells Ben to follow her home. In the room, Ben tries to wear a condom, but Allison hurries him. Then they make love. In the morning, Ben takes her for breakfast. He talks a lot about weird topics and Allison tries to escape him. Ben tells her he doesn't have a phone when she gives him her card, but he tells her to text him on his website if she needs him. At home, Allison tells her sister sleeping with Ben was a mistake. 8 weeks later, Allison is interviewing a celebrity, but she looks nauseating. Then she runs to a corner and throws up. At home, she scarily tells her sister she can't be pregnant, and they rush to the supermarket. When they return, Allison uses them all to conduct a test, and they all read positive. Later that night, Debbie advises her sister to text or call Ben. Allison calls Ben in the company of his friends, and they all think she wants to meet up with him because she misses having fun with him. At the location, Allison tells Ben she's pregnant and Allison yells at him for not putting on a condom, while Ben blames her for not allowing him put on a condom. Later they go to the hospital for a scan and it appears that she's pregnant. Ben and Allison consult their parents for advices. Allison calls Ben later and tells him she's decided to keep the baby and Ben says he's in support. He invites her to his house and they go on a date where they buy baby cloths and baby books. When they get home, they have a little conversation and Allison tells Ben not to break her heart, but Ben tells her he's the one who girls usually breaks his heart. The next day, Ben eats with Allison's family and gets to play with Debbie's kids, while the women talk about giving him time to adapt in a corner. Ben and Allison begin to see series of doctors for antenatal, and Allison helps Ben find clips for his website. Debbie hangs out with them later and offers to buy them a cradle, but Allison objects. Ben shushes her and makes Debbie purchase it for them. They come outside and Allison runs into some of her friends and she introduces Ben as her friend. Ben tells Pete later that he thinks Allison is embarrassed around him. He tells him about his soon-to-launch website and Pete tells him about a similar website that's been out already. Ben proposes to Allison in her house with an empty box and she tells him she loves him, but she preferred they keep getting to know each other better. Debbie tells Allison that she thinks Pete is cheating on her. They go for a double dinner date, and the women are surprised how Ben and Pete talked about things they had in common. 28 weeks later, they are both having fun in the room, but he fears bursting to the baby with his things. A few days later, Allison calls Ben to come over so he can help stalk Pete, whom Debbie thinks is cheating on her. They follow him into a house and Debbie ends up seeing Pete in a company of men drafting about baseball. Debbie hurriedly leaves and Pete runs after her. Outside, they nag and Debbie tells him he spends time with friends more than he spends with their family and Pete remains rigid. Debbie tells him he doesn't want him at the house anymore. At noon, Ben and Allison are on the road and Allison tells him she can't stop imagine what Pete was by being so selfish to her sister, but Ben makes light of the issue and Allison gets upset at his nonchalance and she asks him to leave her car. Ben refuses. Bit 10, she insists, leaving him in the middle of an unknown area. At the hospital, Allison is checking her weight and Ben walks in and makes a joke at her angrily. She snaps and tells him not to always take everything lightly, and they get into a heated argument, which results in splitting in a bad mood. That night, Ben hangs out with Pete, and they talk about the two women and finally agree on going to Vegas to have fun. Meanwhile, Allison is laying down sad seeing a movie and Debbie tells her to get up so they could be positive and go have some fun. Ben and Pete are having fun in a club in Vegas. Allison and Debbie goes to the club where they first met Ben, and Dorman refuses to let them in. Debbie nags at him furiously, but he tells her he doesn't get to make the rules of allowing an old woman and a pregnant lady in the club. Debbie cries later that night to Allison that she doesn't want to be alone, and Ben and Pete, on the other hand, are so high on weed, and Ben rebukes Pete for not loving Debbie, who clearly desires only his love and attention. They get back home and Debbie is preparing the house for a birthday party. Ben comes to the house and sees that Pete and Debbie have gotten along. Ben and Allison talks at a place, and Ben tries to tell her to give him a shot, but she keeps telling him she doesn't want to force their relationship to work just because they are playing nice to each other. Ben calls his dad one night for advice on what to do. He begins to clear his house while his friends move in to stay somewhere else. Allison's boss, Jack, talks with Allison and tells her they do not like how she kept the pregnancy issue a secret, but then she tells her she'd get to interview pregnant stars. Pete and the family go for a vacation while Allison stays back. Ben is alone reading the baby book he purchased for his wife earlier, and his friends calls him from their new apartment to check up on him. Allison picks up a call and a different doctor speaks to her. She tells him she needs her personal doctor, but the doctor tells her he's out of reach tonight. She calls Ben and tells him to come over. He panics, and she yells at him to come over and drive her to the hospital. Ben reaches Allison's home, and he finds her in a bathtub. He seems confused, and she tells him she needs a serene environment where the baby would be born into. She tells him to try their personal doctor again, but Ben doesn't still get him, so he leaves in a voice note. Ben tells her they could drive to the hospital, and he'd call all the doctors they went through and see which one of them would offer to help. They get to the hospital of one of the mean doctors they met earlier. Ben's friends also wait at the reception. There's an issue with Allison, and the doctor tells her they have to use drugs to speed up the delivery. Allison tells him she needs to deliver the normal way, and the doctor gets furious about being told how to do his job. Ben asks him to talk with him outside. Outside, Ben pleads with the doctor to be nice to Allison because she's going through a hard time, and he apologizes to Allison, but she doesn't take it. Ben tells her he's spoken with the doctor to be nicer to her, and she apologizes to Ben for breaking up with him. Later, Pete and Debbie comes to see Allison, and she thanks Ben and tells him she can handle the rest rudely, and Ben asks her to talk with him at the hall for a second. At the hall, Ben strictly warns her to back off and let him take care of Allison, and Debbie obeys. Allison is in labor, and the doctors put on their efforts until she delivers. Pete and Debbie goes in to see them, and Debbie gets so emotional. Ben comes out and hugs his friends. That night, Ben talks with his baby while Allison sleeps. The next day, Allison is discharged and Ben takes her to his home, and the baby grows in the comfort of the united families. The movie ends. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, as this helps in our channel growth. Thank you. See you in our next video. Bye for now.